Welcome back, everybody. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. We're not doing a haunted location. We are doing the place of which a legend originated. And this legend crosses two states, two Indian nations, two famous horror writers, and one swamp. And I found it while flipping through this book, New England's Haunted Route 44. And I actually stopped mid-flip, went back, and went, hold on, what did I just read? And it is the legend of it from West Gloucester, Rhode Island, specifically the small village of Chepachet, Rhode Island. And yes, you heard me right, the legend of it. No, not the sewer-dwelling, red balloon-wielding clown that we've all come to know, but this is a very different creature. Shall we say. And it is a swamp dweller, so at least, the murky, mucky waters is similar. But now this legend, supposedly, according to Thomas D'Agostino, who wrote the book, and another blogger as well, make note that the natives of the area were aware of this creature. Now, I did a little research, and I had to specifically look up Chepachet. Chepachet fell under the either the Pequot nation or the Nipmuc nation. And when I tried to dig in to see what they said about it, I couldn't find anything. So there's a few different things. First of all, it could be just time constraints and just I wasn't putting in the right search parameters. So it may exist. It's just in an archive with either nation, the Pequots or the Nipmucs. And it's not digitally available, or it is, and I just put in the wrong search terms. The tale itself was never recorded. It's just kind of a local legend that the natives knew it was there, or there was a consensus like, yeah, don't go there. We're all in agreement. We're just going to leave it alone and just avoid that area, which is another probability. So that's that. So apparently whatever this thing is, however old it is, it's old. It's quite old. Now, this story may actually sound familiar to some of you because it involves a very famous horror writer by the name of Howard Phillips Lovecraft. That's right. Lovecraft would find inspiration from this legend. Him and his best friend, Clifford Martin Eddy, would go from Providence to Chepachet in search of the creature. They wanted to know where it was, what it looked like, and they were determined to go traipsing through the swamp to find it. They never were able to find it, however, and it almost seems like they just kind of wandered around town. They started first in a general store asking if the clerk there knew anything about it, and then he kind of sent them off. Now, one thing that's worth noting is that this swamp has an actual name, and the name of the swamp is quite literally Dark Swamp. If you go and look it up on maps, that's the actual name of it. It is known as the Dark Swamp, and that's what they were looking for. Now, this swamp was located on the edges of a farm. So I don't know if by today's standards it is considered state property or if it's possibly private property. There are people that wander around and do walk through the swamp. I believe there might be trails that lead through there. But I don't know if it's a nature preserve, I couldn't quite get a beat on that. I was more concerned with trying to figure out if it had been partially drained, because one of the blogs I found of someone that had gone there had said that it looked like part of it had been drained and then another part is still kind of swampy, basically. So yeah. But the reason why it's called Dark Swamp is that it is literally impenetrable. The way the trees grow, they have created kind of a web over the water that the sunlight never gets through, even in winter. It's quite a deep swamp, and legend has it that a lot of people have gone in and have never come out and have probably been eaten by it. So this is what Lovecraft and Eddie were in search of, and they started at the general store. I know it's in my notes. It's buried somewhere in there for the gentleman's name, because the gentleman's house still exists. And they eventually end up on the law farm, I believe. And because Kent Sparks of Stone Wings interviewed Ruth, who was the granddaughter of the original owner, in 1996, and I believe it says she was about maybe in her 80s at the time. She was 7 years old when Lovecraft came up, and she remembered the two gentlemen walking around and talking to her grandfather. I don't know if she knew what they were talking about, but even in 96, among the locals, there were still tales of hunters that had gone into the swamp and had never come back. They found the trails surrounding it, but there is a section of swamp that is unreachable. The trees and the plants in the water make it impossible to get to. Many of the places Lovecraft went can be seen. Henry Sales, that's the name of the the name of the gentleman who owned the general store where he stopped. His house is still around, and he was the town clerk. I'm sorry. It wasn't a general store, it was the town clerk. And from there, he kind of sent him, I don't want to say on a wild goose chase around town, but he did definitely send him to a bunch of different people to find, get different answers. One thing that is noted of, I believe it's noted in here, and it's also noted by people that have been there, is that there are no animals around the swamp. When you go walking through there, there's just no noise. And there's no documentation that it's been sprayed, that it somehow has been contaminated and it's inhabitable. It's just that there's no animals, there's no noise. One of the accounts I read, the person could hear voices, but never actually caught up to the person or people that were talking. It's just a very eerie place from what I understand. Now, as Sparks points out, it is a swamp. And even D'Agostino noted this, that there are probably a lot of potholes, bog-like structures, where it's very easy to slip through and drown. It may not necessarily be that it got you. It might just be that you met an unfortunate end and followed the lights into the swamp. So, but this is, that was Lovecraft's thing. He wanted to find out. So, let's see. Now, where is this located? So I said Chepachet. That's the town, but it's about 20 minutes from the Connecticut border, because there is a connection to Putnam, Connecticut. So you've got Rhode Island and Connecticut, the Pequot and the Nipmuc, and then you've got Lovecraft and Eddie. So this story just has a lot of layers to it. A lot of layers. Let me read you the actual description. So according to legend, the sun's rays never reach the ground. The trees' gnarly limbs have interwoven through growth, making it impossible to find an entrance into the swamp. It is here that it makes its home, emerging from the swamp to feed. No other living creatures dare venture close to its habitat. The locals made sure to chop wood, fish, hunt far from the boundaries of the swamp for fear of being seen by it and never being seen again. The two authors trekked down Route 44 past Cady's Tavern, where they stopped for lunch, and it is still around today, and you can still go there if you want to stop in. Check the hours, because I know I looked, and it was like 11 p.m. I swear I I don't know. I just had a hard time reading it. But yeah, the Cady's Tavern is still around. You can still stop there and go in and visit. And I think there might actually be ghosts in the tavern as well. So you could check that out as a haunted restaurant if you really wanted to. Elbow Rock Road on Route and then down Route 94. They did not find the monster, but they were able to get information that was useful in their work. So they were able to talk to the locals. I don't know if a lot of locals today still make note of it, if they know it exists, or if this is just an old wives' tale, old folk tale that was just passed down through the neighborhoods. It's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. But I think if you are at least aware, you've picked up some of these books, because I know it comes up in this book on Route 44, and I think it also comes up on a book about haunted Rhode Island. So it's been documented, and considering the fact that it's a place that a lot of Lovecraftians go to, or try to go to, or want to go to do their to research and look around and find it. The description, though, was, I think I read off part of it to one of my friends, or summarized it. I will read it for you because my summary just doesn't do it justice. He referred to it as a demon cow. It does sound a little bit like that, but not quite. So, but I guess if you want to have a good bedtime story. Oh, what did you listen to today? Oh, I heard about a demon cow that lives in Rhode Island. Oh, is that so? What are you watching? Oh, let's see. Now, how is it that Lovecraft and Eddie even heard about this tale to begin with? So there are two possible sources, one of which comes from an account for either pirate Albert Hicks or Neil Hopkins. Now, Albert Hicks was one of the last New England pirates. So Albert Hicks was born in Foster, Rhode Island in 1820. He was a farmer, and it was thought that he would take over his father's farm, but he decided not to. He ended up turning to robbery, piracy, and murder. So he heard that Captain Kidd had potentially buried treasure on the Payne farm that was next to his. So what he did was he gathered up himself, John Jepp, Ben Cobb, Ben Saunders, and Hicks all crept onto the farm with their shovels and pitchforks and started to dig. And they would suddenly be attacked by a beast. Hicks later described as a large beast with eyes of fire the size of pewter bowls. It breathed flame from its mouth and nostrils, scorching brush as it passed. Large as a cow, with dark wings on each side and spiral horns like a ram's protruding from its head. Its feet were like a buck's, but measured 1.5 feet across. The body was covered with scales the size of clam shells that rattled along as it moved. That now you see where my friend got demon cow. The thing had light emanating from its sides like a lantern. Even before seeing it, the men became aware of its presence as it gave off the smell of burning wool. The beast approached out of nowhere, and the men dropped their picks and shovels and ran in fright, never to return. Albert Hicks would later be convicted in New York of murder and piracy. Never went back to go get that treasure. Let's try that again. The next account came from Neil Hopkins, who was from Glocester, Rhode Island, and he was walking home from Putnam, Connecticut. He was walking home. I really hope that was a short walk. Like, we're talking like right over the town line, because that's a little bit of a hike, depending on where you are. And he was walking down a dark road when the beast approached him. And he fled, and the beast gave chase. He couldn't make out the features, but confirmed that it was the same supernatural beast living in the forest near the dark swamp where the chase initiated. He later told neighbors the monster was as large as an elephant with no tail and seemed to be all fire and hot breath. It gave off a metal sound as it ran, like steel on steel. Hopkins was chased for a short distance before the beast ran back into the woods. So, I guess it never got its dinner. So those are the only two accounts that have come down to us. Now, if other people have seen it or whatnot, there are no other accounts, or at least D'Agostino doesn't write them down, so it's plausible that there are others, but somewhere along the way, believe these two stories, or one of the stories, appeared either in the newspaper. Somehow it made its way to Lovecraft's attention, or I believe it might have been a radio show. It's something along those lines where somehow he came across this information and decided it would be a good idea to head out from Providence up to Chepachet to look for this beast. You can go and walk the trails around the swamp. I don't know. This is one of those times when I would say I do not know if I would advise going, just because it is dangerous. It's a swamp. It's openly acknowledged that people have gone in and not come out. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the tales of the Scottish bogs, where people would go and they would make sacrifices and you'd get like perfectly mummified corpses. So I don't know if at any time, if they should ever get into the part that is supposedly impassable and impossible to get to if you're going to find a bunch of perfectly preserved bodies in the bog or in the swamp. But that's what it does kind of remind me of that a bit. So it is dangerous. There is a probability of falling in. I don't know if you can get lost because the area, it looks like it's a fairly large area as well. That's worth making note of. And again, I don't know if it's state property or private property. So that also is another thing to bear in mind, because you don't want to go traipsing across someone else's property and then get, arrested or fined for trespassing. And just the nature of this, if this thing is as old as, the Native Americans, or even older than them, and it's been around for a while, I don't know. I don't know if this is one of those things that you really want to pursue. Of course, there are the adrenaline junkies out there that would be all for it. So, hopefully you're an adult, you know what to do. You know if you want to go or not. And you're probably going to have that one friend going, this is a very bad idea. Let's not do this. Listen to that friend. There are plenty of other haunted locations you could go to. But if you're a nature lover, you like traipsing through swamps, I guess now's a good time because all the bugs are gone. So you don't have to worry about being eaten alive by mosquitoes. But yeah, I don't know if I would recommend seeking this one out. That's entirely your call. But yeah, they do make now it doesn't seem to cross state lines. The reason it was connected to Connecticut is because you have someone that was walking from Putnam back home. So there's your Connecticut connection. And it's not far. I know I looked up, I think maybe from the center of Putnam to Glocester. It is about 20 minutes. It's probably a lot less if you live right on the Connecticut Rhode Island town line or state line. So I don't know. But that's what I have for you. I'm sorry there was a lot of reading in this one, but this one was actually really detail heavy. This is a really detail heavy episode. Like there are those that I would have never been able to properly, I think, convey that description without reading it. At least not without screwing it up. So, and I was afraid to summarize it because that's a really detailed and specific description. I have words. So I think I'm going to end it here. Let me know if you have any questions. There will be all of the resources I referenced will be in the description. There is also a live interview if you want to hear Thomas D'Agostino tell the story for himself. There is an interview with, I think, WPI Rhode Island. It's a video interview where he kind of summarizes the story. There are a couple of blogs that I will post for you as well. You can read it for yourself, I believe, in Haunted Rhode Island and Haunted Route 44, if you want to check out those books. So, happy, safe driving. Drive safe, be mindful, stay away from the swamps. Don't go bothering ancient people-eating creatures in swamps. All right, everybody, take care, and until we meet again, bye.